Hey guys, Thyworm here. Multiplayer got a release date, so I thought I'll make a video on it, sharing my thoughts. I'm hinging on two thoughts, really. Mostly, I'm disappointed because when multiplayer launches in March, it will be a year since last Epoch got a single content patch. On the other hand, I'm glad there's clarity on the whole thing, or most of it. And just to address some comments and dislikes in my last video, because I was being honest about the shortcomings of last Epoch, apologies for my honesty in those videos. It will happen again. But don't worry, it's not gonna be that bad, I don't think. I'm going to start, however, with the negatives here, so I can end on a positive note, a few positive notes actually. But first, the disappointment. I'm just a little sad that it is taking all so long for many reasons. First, I actually want to play last Epoch, but we've been in the same endgame meta since the Monolith rework, and it's just super boring right now for a veteran like me to still keep playing. For those thinking that multiplayer will bring new content in that regard, it actually won't. There will be no new content, it's just the same game and the same endgame, but now you can play it with friends. That's great if you haven't put a ton of hours into endgame or, played the game at all. But if you have, like me, this multiplayer thing doesn't add much in terms of endgame content. Nothing, in fact. I'm sure there will be a few new uniques and some balancing, but I don't count that as content, although hopefully it will bring about a new build or two. I'm also disappointed that the game is taking so bloody long to complete. The whole idea that we've been sold that multiplayer wouldn't influence the development of the actual content because there were two different teams working on it? Yeah, right. That's why we haven't seen a patch since March, I guess. That was either a lie or a gross misjudgment of the complexity of implementing multiplayer. EHG isn't lying, so it's probably the latter, which also explains why the devs thought multiplayer would release this year. Since the financial boost from Tencent, I can't help but feel the communication towards the community has just been lacking, especially those not in the community testing program, which I'm not a part of either. We didn't get any new content, there was hardly any press release or meaningful devlogs. It is a stark contrast to how things used to be, and I think that's a shame. Yeah, I'm aware Mike is streaming every week, I'm watching that, like the replays at least, answering the same questions over and over again, but the leaks, they don't really interest me, and the newsworthiness of those streams is very minimal. Talking planning for a bit, the timelines and dates they're going for are also somewhat disappointing. If 0.9 is coming in March, then the full game 1.0 is coming much later, somewhere in the summer, Q3 2023 I suppose. At that time, it is likely that Diablo 4 already launched, which is rumored for April, and the beta for PoE 2 is, as far as I know, still planned or rumored for Q4 2023, according to Chris Wilson himself. So last Epoch is really maneuvering itself in a tricky timeline position there. And speaking of Path of Exile, this Friday, the 9th of December, a new league launches. Regardless of what you think about the game, it's fishing out of the same pond of players, of content creators, of fanboys and fangirls. Leagues typically take 3 months because GGG wants to release 4 leagues a year. So guess when the next league after this one will start, the 3.21 league if all goes according to plan. Yep, March 9th, the date that multiplayer drops in last Epoch. Maybe 1 or 2 weeks later, but that's going to take the wind out of the sails of the multiplayer hype for last Epoch. I don't understand this timeline, honestly. If I didn't know any better, and maybe I don't know any better, I would almost think it's intentional, that they want to bury the launch a bit, but that can't be true because of all the events prior to the launch. We'll talk about that at the end of the video. Because hype or no hype, still nothing compares really to PoE new league hype. It is so smooth, so slick, and more importantly, there's so much new content. And every time around 200,000 concurrent people jump back in. If that league launches on the same day, those team numbers are not going to peak as high as the devs would like for last Epoch. My last point of disappointment, which hasn't got much to do with this announcement but has everything to do with multiplayer, is the focus on multiplayer. Now, when I say multiplayer, I mean co-op play. playing together with friends. Everything else, like online server authoritative, making sure fellow content creators actually stop cheating when making build guides, that's of course a good thing. A reliable ladder seems legit if that's something you care about. I'm all in favor of that, but that's not really something anyone is debating. No, for me, multiplayer is what it is by its definition, I suppose, multiple players playing together. It is the feature that EHG is constantly using in their marketing, and rightly so, because it is a selling point. But I think it's not as big of a selling point as everyone thinks it is. I realize a lot of people are waiting on multiplayer to jump in, or at least they say so. It's really hard to tell, honestly. But what is not that hard to tell is that the vast majority of hack and slash ARPG players don't play games like these in co-op. The percentage of people playing Diablo 3 or PoE in co-op really is not all that high. Co-op can be a distinguishing feature, but I really question if you should prioritize co-op over just making the game better for everyone. This whole post is about specific multiplayer features, talking about how dungeons now work, how the monolith now works and all that stuff using co-op. And sure, it's important, I suppose, but wouldn't you rather just have a better monolith dungeon and arena system instead of one that works well in co-op? I think that's why a game like Path of Exile doesn't prioritize multiplayer over other content, typically. They take it into account and work it in if they can, but it's never stopping them from adding new content, because they know what matters in order for people to return to their game: content. Even if that content results in things we don't always like as a player base, like the trading system. But the way I see it, the trading system in Path of Exile is a little bit like paying taxes. Nobody likes to do it, but ultimately paying taxes helps to make society a better place, just like public trading helps making the PoE game a better place. As soon as the devs create their trade manifesto for Last Epoch, I'll be making another video, probably using this exact argumentation, because party trade is just not gonna cut it, I don't think. But my point is, with co-op so heavily ingrained in the base of Last Epoch, with it being so much of a marketing point, the devs have also created this massive dependency. From here on out, new content has to be suitable for solo and co-op. New systems have to be designed for solo and co-op. And I don't know, man, it's like developing the game to run on Linux. They tried that once. Sure, it makes 3 people happy, but in the long term, it makes also very little sense. Let's move on to the positives. The post has quite a few interesting additional features, if you will. They have nothing to do with multiplayer really, but they will release in the same patch on March 9th, so we might as well cover them. Several skills get updated, and personally I'm excited for the swipe rework. It's getting new visual effects, new sound effects and some new nodes. Like this one. The new Spirit Wolves node will count as the wolf casting the spirit and thus scale with the wolf's stats instead of yours. Each wolf companion will send out a spirit, and multiple spirit wolves can hit the same target now to open up a whole new build style with wolves and offer better scaling opportunities. Shotgunning wolves, basically, or maybe even better, shotgunning squirrels. That's going to be very fun in my Beastmaster build, probably one of my best builds out there. I might just start with that, it went very well last time. Other skills get reworks too, like Shield Rush, Rive, Harvest, and a rather impressive Reaper form. It's not the only thing that gets updated, however, because there are a bunch of new enemies with some cool new video footage. The art department of Last Epoch has never let us down, apart from that IKEA lamp incident when designing a staff. I guess that was the intern, but otherwise it's always rock solid. Look at these cute little guys crawling over the floor in very fancy visuals, I might add, gnawing away at your void resistance. From the little guy we go to the big guy. This dude, the void fused earth, looks rather impressive. Finally, there are reworked zones and apparently also performance increases, but honestly I'll believe that one once I see it, because that's been said too many times in the past and the game on some builds still runs like total ass. Second positive thing, the schedule. Sure, I'm criticizing the actual launch date and it might hurt them pretty bad, but the road towards the release is clear and I think well thought out. They're not explicitly mentioning this, but if you would have to do this timeline still this year, even if it would be possible and the game is ready, you know, that wouldn't be possible at least without sacrificing Christmas for the devs. and I'm sure they've been working hard. Deserve some holidays, so they're going ham next year. First, there's a multiplayer beta invitational from January 27th to January 29th. It's family and friends, community testers, and content creators that are being invited. I might get an invitation, might not, after the last few videos, but I feel it's fair criticism. Yes, I realize I am one of the more critical content creators of Last Epoch out there, but I'm also one of the content creators that's making content for this game for the longest time, and I strongly believe constructive criticism makes for a better game. Although, I also understand viewers listening to this and not agreeing because they like the game so much. But what you gotta remember, like, I also like the game so much, but I played probably a little bit or a lot longer than you. So I'm coming from a different perspective, trying to incorporate longevity and replayability into this ARPG, because that is how it will survive. I'm not being negative here to be negative, I'm being negative because the game is just lacking essential features that make this replayable and fun for more than, let's say, 200 hours. That is my main concern. And some of the decisions that are made by the devs don't really make that much sense to me, which fuels my criticism. But hey, we'll see how the devs feel about that invitational. I'd be up for it at least. Seems like fun. A week later, the devs are inviting 10,000 players, those are people with a copy of the game. And then February 23rd, there will be an open weekend, free to play on Steam for everyone, even if you don't own the game. This is a big one, honestly, and it should bring in tons of new blood. And once again, new players will be very impressed, I think, with Last Epoch. They will not notice all my criticisms at all, and I would recommend Last Epoch to anyone. It's amazing value for your money. So this should get a lot of people hyped, assuming the servers actually keep running. And then March 9th, the multiplayer patch launches. The final positive thing, at least I think is positive and fun, a complete fresh start. Your offline characters will not transfer to online, so any online character you make starts completely from scratch. It's like League Start without trade. Still, to me that's a lot of fun. It will be back to the grind, farming those uniques, farming all that content, remaking builds, having some fun with friends. I'm looking forward to all of that, and it's something I've been wanting for a while. All in all, it's disappointing news, but hopefully as soon as we get there, like as soon as we get to the end of January, February, March, it will be fun. The devs seem confident enough. I feel pretty confident about it these days as well, actually, the launch I mean. After a year, you'd think they would nail it, right? And let's not forget that community testers have been testing this multiplayer aspect for a long time now, so the devs should have a good grasp on what works and what doesn't. It's probably going to be fine. With that, I will say my thanks and leave you. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy Last Epoch opinion videos, please subscribe. I have guides as well for this game and some builds. Thanks for watching and making it to the end. Love you all. See you soon. Bye bye.